Sightings of the Tasmanian tiger are surging in 2025, from grainy videos, eyewitness reports, and even trail cam footage. But how can that be? This animal was declared extinct almost a century ago. Known as the Thylacine, it once ruled Australia and Tasmania with its dog-like body, striped back, and bone-crushing jaws. It vanished in 1936, or so we thought. Now, people around the world are asking the same question. Is the Tasmanian tiger really extinct? Could these new sightings be real? Is there a secret population still out there, or is science about to bring this predator back from the dead? What we're about to uncover might change everything we thought we knew. Welcome to the hunt. Before we dive in, if you haven't seen our first video on the Tasmanian tiger, I highly recommend watching it first because it lays the groundwork for this discussion and provides essential context. Once you're all caught up, come back and join us as we explore an update to one of the most elusive creatures in the world. Much like many extinct or mythical creatures, the Thylacine's hold over the general population has given birth to countless sightings over the years. But it seems in 2024 and 2025, after the release of never-before-seen historical photos in January, there was a sort of rekindling of the Tasmanian tiger sighting. Putting a face to what many uninformed people called a mythological creature, these pictures spread like wildfire, and it wasn't long before reports of sightings began to make the rounds. Before we go into the sightings, note that whether the sightings are a direct result of the photos or not is completely speculative. But it is factual that these creatures existed, and if there's one thing you should take from this video, it is that there is always the possibility that a Tasmanian tiger is running in the wild. After all, many other supposedly extinct species have turned up after hundreds of years, proving to the world that they were merely lost, not extinct. So the question stands. Is the Tasmanian tiger extinct or lost? Let's look at some of 2024's most famous sightings. In May 2024, there was a brief moment when it seemed we had definite proof that the Thylacine was still around. And it came from wildlife biologist Forrest Galante. Galante shared a series of photographs that seemingly depicted a living Tasmanian tiger. The images were provided by an individual identified only as Zach, who claimed to have encountered the creature during a nighttime drive in Tasmania. According to Zach, he and his father spotted what they initially thought was an injured dog by the roadside. Upon approaching, the animal reportedly bared its teeth and emitted a shrieking sound before retreating into nearby vegetation. Luckily for us though, Zach managed to capture several photographs during this brief encounter. And here they are. The photographs showed a dog-like creature with distinctive striping along its back that looked a lot like those of the Thylacine's characteristic markings, as he usually does. Galante expressed cautious optimism about the images, but he had to acknowledge that these pictures needed expert analysis to assess their authenticity. So, was this a genuine Tasmanian tiger sighting? Well, sadly, the subsequent evaluations by wildlife experts seriously doubt the legitimacy of the photographs. One of the problems here is some anatomical inconsistencies that were noted, particularly concerning the creature's jaw structure and striping patterns, which did not align with known Thylacine characteristics. To make matters worse, the lack of corroborative evidence and the anonymous nature of the source only served to fuel further skepticism. As of now, the jury's still out. Zach's encounter definitely adds to a long list of alleged Thylacine sightings, but without concrete evidence, a clear photo, DNA, or, an actual Thylacine, skepticism remains high. But just when you think things couldn't get weirder, October rolled round with yet another fascinating sighting. In October 2024, a thermal camera flipped the Thylacine narrative onto its head when it captured this. In a mob of marsupials, the camera captured footage of a creature in Tasmania's wilderness, displaying a heat signature similar to that of a medium-sized mammal. As you would expect, this sparked excitement among enthusiasts who believed the Tasmanian tiger or the Thylacine might still roam the island. Believers argued that the thermal imagery's size and, more notably, movement patterns align with known behaviours of the Thylacine. So what do they mean by movement pattern? Well, the Thylacine's movements were stiff and almost unnatural, unlike modern predators. It had a hopping-like gait, especially when startled, similar to a kangaroo. Now, this is because its hind legs were longer than its front legs, giving it an awkward, rigid walk. When running, it moved at a loping trot, lacking the agility of dogs or big cats. Some reports even suggest it could stand on its hind legs for brief periods. Essentially, it moved like the animal in the video. Believers also suggested that given the remote location and the distinctiveness of the heat signature, this could be credible evidence supporting the survival of the species. So was this a credible Thylacine sighting, Well, that depends on who you ask, because some believers believe it to be a Tasmanian tiger, many others believe it to simply be an injured fox, especially because of how it moved. If you think a fox is far-fetched, then you must have never seen a fox with mange. See, Sarcoptes mange is a characteristic disease in foxes caused by the mite Sarcoptes scabii, which results in excessive scratching, fur loss, and scaly skin. Now, this disease is a serious problem, as an infected fox will eventually lose significant weight, become lethargic, and potentially die without treatment. But here's where the thylacine connection comes into play. See, the large amounts of fur loss, along with each fox's visible skin, can create, from a distance, a simple appearance of a thylacine, due to the sunk skin and thin body condition. Add to that the fact that they can lose fur on their tail, making it look like a thylacine's or the one in the video, and you can quickly see how the animal in this clip might have been a fox. At the moment, skeptics caution against drawing definitive conclusions from the footage alone. After all, it's important to remember that thermal imaging lacks the detail necessary to make accurate species identification, and that other animals, such as wallabies or large possums, could produce similar thermal signatures. Although the sightings were a hit and miss, one thing was clear: the interest in rediscovering the thylacine had gone nowhere. In fact, in June 2024, filmmaker Tim Noonan released a two-part documentary titled Hunt for Truth, Tasmanian Tiger. Noonan's documentary was more or less a comprehensive investigation into both recent and historical thylacine sightings, collaborating with scientists from the University of Tasmania, including Professor Barry Brook, Dr. Jesse Butel, and Associate Researcher Kenji Sabine. The series dived into the credibility of these reports. But that was not all. The team ventured into Tasmania's remote wilderness and extended their search to regions as distant as Papua New Guinea, where local legends and occasional reports suggest the thylacine's presence. Throughout the series, Noonan interviews eyewitnesses who claim to have encountered the thylacine, analysing their accounts against scientific data. Sadly, the documentary did not find the missing creature, but it let us know that people were looking. Okay, now let's take a detour and look at an interesting question. Could the reason we have not discovered a thylacine today be that we are looking in the wrong place? This may sound strange, but maybe the best place to find a missing thylacine is not Australia or Tasmania, but some obscure forest 150 kilometers away, somewhere on the island of New Guinea. See, the thylacine existed not only in Australia and Tasmania, but also in New Guinea, and there are fossils that are over 2 million years old to support this. So here's the theory. With the isolated and dense forests of the island, many researchers believe it is easier for the thylacine to hide here without direct observation. And they have a point. See, New Guinea has dense rainforests, rugged mountains, and secluded valleys that effectively creates isolated habitats suitable for elusive species. Couple that with the fact that the thylacine was formerly found in New Guinea, where it was adaptable to many habitats, from dense forest to grassland, and you begin to see the big picture. But it gets crazier. New Guinea is actually no stranger to resurrecting extinct species. In reality, the island is known for its Lazarus species, or animals that were presumed extinct and turned up as if nature had clicked the undo button. An example of this is the black-naped pheasant pigeon, which had not been found for 140 years before it was rediscovered in 2022. There was also the bronze quail, another bird scientists believed was long gone, until locals casually pointed out, oh yeah, we see those all the time. And it doesn't stop there. The New Guinea big-eared bat, thought to have disappeared for over a century before it made a dramatic comeback. Attenborough's long-beaked echidna, missing in action for decades until fresh evidence hinted it might still be burrowing through the jungle. Even the golden-mantled tree kangaroo that was so rare it was considered nearly mythical turned up in the wild after being considered extinct. New Guinea isn't simply a hotspot for biodiversity, it's also a hotspot for the idea that extinction isn't necessarily final. The harsh terrain and limited access from humans to many areas of this island could hide undetected wildlife, resulting in the potential for species like the thylacine to, perhaps, be unknowingly camouflaged in these spaces. In fact, in the past 2 decades, there have been unverified accounts from New Guinea of thylacine-like animals. For example, people living in the highlands of West Papua have regularly reported them to be present close to the border with Papua New Guinea, for example, in the Kurima, Oksibo, and Okibab areas, describing animals that appear to be thylacine, or Dobsegna in the local dialect. The Dani people, living in the Baliem area of Papua, have also reported seeing similar animals. So far, all reports and sightings of thylacine-like animals discovered so far are interesting. But none are confirmatory evidence of the continued presence of the Thylacine in New Guinea because there are no definitive or confirmatory photographs, physical evidence, or genetic material collected. However, the possibility of Thylacine presence remains for New Guinea due to its wilderness and vast area that has not been completely explored. All of the wildlife that may exist there, including the Thylacine. At the moment, even with the many reported sightings and organised searches, we have not yet produced any convincing evidence, such as confirmed physical remains, clear photographs, or even just genetic material that suggests the Thylacine still roams the wild. Repeated scientific survey and camera trapping efforts have consistently found no evidence of surviving Thylacines. And to make things worse, mathematical models of sighting reports suggest the species likely became extinct between the 1940s and 1970s. As it stands, the scientific community continues to agree that the Thylacine does not exist in the wild. So is that all? Are we doomed to never see the Tasmanian tiger again? Well, strangely, science says otherwise. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this journey through the prehistoric world, give that like button a tap and hit subscribe. Over 97% of people watching haven't subscribed yet, and honestly, imagine what we could create together if only a few more people join the tribe. So go on, hit subscribe. We're just getting started. Much like some other famous extinct animals, like mammoths and the dodo bird, scientists have concluded that if it simply died out, why not just revive it? And so, in an act that we can only describe as playing God, they set out to do just that. In October 2024, Colossal Biosciences made a jaw-dropping announcement. 99.9% of the Thylacine genome had been reconstructed, with only 45 gaps left to fill. That's right. According to this, the so-called extinct Tasmanian tiger might not be a thing of the past for much longer. If that doesn't sound like something straight out of Jurassic Park, just wait, it gets even crazier. To bring back an animal that vanished in 1936, scientists had to pull off some serious genetic wizardry. They started with preserved Thylacine specimens, some over a century old, including a 110-year-old pickled skull. Yes, you heard that right, pickled. From these ancient remains, they painstakingly sequenced its DNA, assembling the most complete genome of any extinct species to date. That was just step one. The real shocker was the fact they also recovered RNA, something scientists thought was nearly impossible. Here's why that matters. See, DNA is like a blueprint. It tells you what parts go where. But RNA, that's the instruction manual. It reveals how genes actually functioned in a living Thylacine. Meaning scientists aren't just bringing back a rough copy of the animal, they're reconstructing something far more accurate. Just imagine trying to rebuild a vintage car without knowing how the engine worked. Now imagine suddenly finding the original manual. Game changer, right? With this data, researchers are turning to CRISPR, the groundbreaking gene editing tool that can splice DNA with near-surgical precision. But what's the plan here? Well, they hope to insert Thylacine genes into the DNA of a closely related species, the fat-tailed dunnet, a tiny marsupial that, although it looks nothing like the Thylacine, is actually its genetic cousin. By modifying dunnet tails and coaxing them into becoming embryos, they hope to create a creature with the traits of a real, living Tasmanian tiger. Here's where it gets even more sci-fi. Since marsupials have short pregnancies, researchers are also developing artificial wombs, bioengineered pouches that could support the growth of these genetically edited embryos. That means they wouldn't even need a living mother to bring back the Thylacine. If successful, this could revolutionize not just de-extinction, but conservation biology as a whole. However, as you would expect, not everyone's on board. Critics argue that reviving extinct species is risky. What if reintroduced Thylacine struggle to survive in modern Tasmania? What if they disrupt existing ecosystems? And let's not ignore the ethical dilemma. Should we really be playing God with nature? Some say it's a waste of resources that should go towards protecting endangered species rather than resurrecting lost ones. On the flip side though, supporters believe that the Thylacine's return could actually help fix problems its extinction caused. See, when the species disappeared, its prey, such as wallabies and possums, became overpopulated, leading to vegetation loss and ecosystem imbalance. Bringing back an apex predator might actually restore the natural order. At the moment, we're closer than ever to bringing back the Tasmanian tiger, and whether you see it as a scientific marvel or an ethical minefield, one thing's clear. The hunt for the Thylacine is back on, and this time, science might just win. So where does that leave us? From grainy photographs to eerie thermal footage, from thrilling documentaries to mind-blowing de-extinction efforts, the thylacine refuses to stay in the past, whether it's hiding in Tasmania's dense wilderness or waiting to be resurrected in a lab. One thing is certain, our obsession with this lost predator isn't going anywhere. But what do you think? Are these sightings proof that the Tasmanian tiger never really disappeared, or are we just seeing what we want to see? And more importantly, if science succeeds in finding a way to bring it back, should we? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into the hunt for the thylacine, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the mysteries of the wild. And maybe one day, the thylacine will no longer be just a legend.